Hey everyone, Heero here, and today we're gonna look at Castorice, an insane DPS that relies on HP fluctuations to power up her adorable dragon friend to deal big PP damage. I'll be discussing her kit, builds, Lightcones, and possible teams. Just as a quick disclaimer though, the footage and information shown is from the creator experience server, so some things could still change when her banner drops. Let's start with her ult, Doom Shriek's Dawn Chime, since it's the only way she can summon her Memo Sprite. It summons Netherwing and gives the dragon a 100% action advance, and it creates a territory named the Lost Netherland, which inflicts a 20% all-type Resh Red to all enemies lasting for 3 turns or until Netherwing dies. But just like Acheron and Fei Xiao, it requires a special method to charge. In Castorice's case, it's called New Bud. The maximum amount of New Bud required to ult depends on the level of the team. But with fully leveled units, the amount needed is 34,000, and there are 2 main ways to charge it. The first way is through your team losing HP, with each point of HP lost giving 1 point of New Bud. The second way is through healing. With her bonus ability, each point of healing received by the party is converted to New Bud, with a cap of 12% of New Bud's maximum points or 4,080 points. Just note, if Netherwing is in the field, you can't gain New Bud points, and all damage and healing to your units is converted into healing for Netherwing. Now this makes Castorice reliant on HP fluctuations to charge her ult, so in turn, she needs to have healers like Gallagher or Luocha to be able to perform at her best. But with that in mind, she has 2 skills. Her regular skill consumes 30% of all allies' HP to deal a massive blast attack scaling off Castorice's max HP. As for her enhanced skill, it's an AoE joint attack that is only usable if Netherwing is in the field, and it consumes 40% of your party's HP while also scaling off Castorice's HP. Now these skills are SP neutral because it consumes HP instead of SP to activate, and they are very effective ways of generating New Bud or healing for Netherwing. It's also good for stacking her talent's damage buff, with it giving her and Netherwing a 20% damage buff for 3 turns every time an ally loses HP, with a max of a 60% damage buff at 3 stacks. Castorice also buffs her own speed by 40% if her HP is above 50%, while also buffing Netherwing's speed by 100% for 1 turn if the dragon manages to kill a wave. Now, this is an in-battle speed buff, so she'll still work with the Poet set, but sadly, it's not enough to put her at the 134 breakpoint, so speed tuning for her is a bit tricky. Now let's talk about the big bad herself, Netherwing. She has the initial speed of 165, a max HP equal to max New Bud, which is 34k, and a max duration of 3 turns. And whenever she's summoned, she buffs the entire party's damage by 10% for 3 turns. Netherwing has 2 different AoE attacks, with the first one being a fairly standard bitch slap scaling off Castorice's HP, while the second is a unique AoE breath attack also scaling off Castorice's HP, and it consumes 25% of Netherwing's HP to activate. But the cool thing is, you can keep casting it up to 4 times in one go if you keep consuming 25% of her HP each time. And by doing so, its multiplier goes from 24% all the way up to 34%. And thanks to her bonus ability, the total damage of the breath also increases by 30% per each cast, capping up to a 180% damage buff at 6 stacks for the duration of the attack. However, realistically, you can only cast 4 of her breath attacks at once. So, to get this ability's full stacks, you need to have her E2, certain blessings in the DU or SU, or use her in this current MOC. Now, if you decide to use all 4 of her breath attacks in 1 turn, or if she dies, Netherwing will use Wings Sweep the Ruins and blow herself up to deal 6 bounce attacks to random enemies while also healing allies. And cause this is a bounce attack, it's amazing for single target damage scenarios while being good for killing random enemies in AoE scenarios. And lastly, enemies can't target Netherwing, and while she's active, none of her allies can die, and instead they will stay at 1 HP. Now this may seem broken, but to balance this, if they take any damage while they're at 1 HP, Netherwing will redirect the damage to herself and increase it by 500% of its original value. Now despite having 34k HP, Netherwing has a very good chance of dying from redirecting the damage to herself. So heal her often so you can keep her healthy and so she can launch more breath attacks. Now moving on to her global revive. All allies killed by an attack will enter the Moon Cocoon state, which delay their deaths until their next turn. This can only occur once per battle and can work even if Castorice isn't in the team. But there are 2 caveats to this. First, if they aren't healed or shielded by their next turn, their revive will fail and they will die. And second, if they get hit by any attack while under this state, they'll also die. Like poor Silver Wolf over there. While their deaths are delayed, they can act and use skills normally as well. This passive can work in any mode. However, from my experience, you won't really need to rely on revives if your team is built and composed well enough. And finally, her technique, which lets Castorice enter Nether Vale, where she paralyzes all enemies that enter her circle, and attacking will cause you to enter battle with every enemy in the circle. While in combat, it automatically summons the Lost Netherland and Netherwing at 50% HP and advances its action at the cost of 40% HP from all allies, while also filling 30% of Castorice's new bud meter. But for talent prio, I recommend leveling the Memo Sprite talent and skill first, then her ult and talent, then her skill, and you can just ignore her basics. With her kit out of the way, we can talk about her Eidolons. Her E1 increases the damage of any of Netherwing's attacks by 120 to 140% of its original damage if she targets an enemy with 80%, 50% or lower HP. Just note, this is not a damage percent buff added to existing multipliers, but instead, it's an entirely new damage multiplier applied after the original damage calculation, meaning it's a unique multiplicative increase with no diminishing returns. As for her E2, it gives her 2 stacks of Ardent Will after summoning Netherwing, which can be used instead of Netherwing's HP to cast her Breath attack, and gives Castorice a 100% action advance while letting her next enhanced skill fill her new bud meter by 30%. Outside of MOC buffs and blessings, this is the only way to have Netherwing execute 6 breath attacks in a row to get the full 180% damage buff from her additional ability. As for her E4, it increases all incoming healing for all allies by 20% while Castorice is in the field. Of course, this is good for helping charge new bud faster, but if you're already hitting the cap for new bud conversion, this won't really be too beneficial for you. As for her E6, it increases Castorice and her Dragon Friend's Quantum Rest spend by 20% whenever they deal damage, while allowing Netherwing to ignore type weakness and increases the bounce count for Netherwing's detonation from 6 to 9. With her Eidolons out of the way, let's talk about Lightcones. Castorice's pretty signature increases her HP by 30%, and whenever she or Netherwing loses HP during their turn, it gives them a 30% def ignore for 2 turns, and when Netherwing blows itself up, it gives Castorice a 12% action advance. This cone with its high base HP and HP buff allows for more damage and new bud generation, while the def ignore is pretty much permanent since Castorice and Netherwing will always consume their own HP. But sadly, there's not a lot of alternatives for her signature. So the best alternative right now would be the BPLC, with it giving her bonus crit rate while buffing her damage as long as Netherwing is in the field. However, there are a few caveats to this LC. First, sadly, it's paid. Second, it's very easy to overcap on crit rate with this cone. And finally, if you have a lot of downtime on Netherwing, it causes a big drop-off in damage because its buff won't be active. Victory in a blink is also an option, but it's only really a crit damage stat stick and has a very low base HP, so it ends up hurting her damage by quite a bit. So a better option is any high base HP Lightcone. Any LC with 1058 base HP or higher should be able to outperform Victory. So they're good choices if you have extras lying around. As for Reminiscence, it's not good on Castorice. This is because of its low base HP, and it's impossible to get full stacks and keep uptime on its passive due to Netherwing having to be resummoned over and over again. But with her Lightcones out of the way, let's look at possible relics. Her best set is the new Poet set. Not only does it give 10% bonus quantum damage, but it also rewards you for building her slow, with it giving her and Netherwing up to 32% crit rate just by having Castorice go below 95 speed out of battle, which isn't too hard to do with its 8% speed reduction, and she does make up for this with her 40% speed buff in battle. Genius is also an option, with it giving her a 10% bonus quantum damage buff while letting her ignore a big chunk of the enemy's defense. However, this set doesn't buff Netherwing, so it's only a good temporary option until you get good Poet pieces. And as usual, 2-piece combos are great options for giving her beneficial stats like bonus quantum damage, crit, or HP, so just pick whichever one you have the best substats on. As for planar sets, her best set would be the new Bone Collection set. It gives her a bonus 12% HP, which increases her damage and new bud generation. And if Castorice's HP reaches 5k, it gives her a bonus 28% crit damage. This set is pretty much made for her, so go farm it. But because it's new, you can use either Arena or Banana as temporary options. Just note, these sets only buff Castorice, so they aren't good long-term options because a lot of her damage comes from Netherwing. With her possible sets out of the way, let's talk about stats. She has the highest base HP in the game of 1629 with the base speed of 95, which is perfect for the Poet set. Aside from this, she also gains 18.7% crit rate, 14.4% quantum damage, and 13.3% crit damage from her traces, so make sure to consider all of that when building. For main stats, you want a crit damage or HP chest, HP boots, HP rope, and an HP or quantum orb. You want to use an HP chest instead of a crit damage one if you happen to run her with a lot of crit damage supports. As for the orb, quantum damage and HP are fairly equal in terms of performance, so just pick whichever one has the best subs. However, due to Castorice providing herself with a lot of damage buffs, if you decide to run her with a damage buffing support, the buff starts to get diluted, so in this case, an HP orb would be the way to go. As for substats, she's completely HP scaling, and investing in speed isn't too ideal because of the Poet set. So, you only really need to focus on crit damage first, and finally HP or crit rate. For HP, I recommend around 7 to 8k to allow for more damage and reliable new bud charging. But of course, more is always better. As for crit damage, around 180 to 200 before battle buffs is good to deal lots of damage, but again, more is always better. As for crit rate, I recommend trying to get around 80 to 100% crit rate in battle to take advantage of all her offensive stats. It's not too hard to reach this due to her getting a lot of crit rate from many sources. Just don't overcap on it though. But with her build out of the way, let's move on to possible teammates. Now, she is an HP scaler, so she doesn't benefit much from supports that have attack buffs like Robin or Ting Yun, so it's not recommended to run them together. But with that in mind, let's start with sustains, the best ones being Luo Cha or Gallagher. They both have on-attack healing, which not only allows Castorice to battery yourself better, but also lets high attack frequency supports provide a lot of charge for new bud, all on top of having debuff cleanses. Gallagher generally has better healing, so he batteries Castorice better, but is reliant on debuff uptime, so he won't do well if you can't get his ult fast enough, especially in stages with fast or weak enemies like in Pure Fiction. So in those stages, Luo Cha will do better than him, all on top of him giving an easier access to team-wide healing. But if you don't want to use Gallagher or don't have Luo Cha, any healer will do. Just note, they will battery Castorice significantly worse than Gallagher or Luo Cha. But with that in mind, one of the 3 best supports right now for Castorice is 2B. They provide a rare 24% rest spend buff while simultaneously increasing enemy damage taken by 30%, which is perfect for Castorice since she's 100% HP scaling. Plus 3B's E1 is a huge single target damage buff for Castorice. And since they're both quantum, you can run Penacony on 3B to better support Cass. And due to her high attack frequency, she can proc Gallagher or Luo Cha's on-attack healing so much, it provides a ton of new bud charge, allowing you to summon Netherwing more often. But if you don't have 3B, Ruan Mei also works. She provides a team-wide 25% rest spend buff with her ult, while increasing team-wide damage by 32% and providing a nice 10% speed buff that puts Castorice right at the 134 breakpoint, which is neat. And debuffers like Jiao Cho, Bella, and Silverwolf all work as well, so they're great choices if you're missing both Ruan Mei and 3B. Our Trash Raccoon, the RMC, and Welt's 4th adopted son, Sunday, are the other 2 of her best supports. However, shockingly, despite Sunday being made to support summon characters, the RMC is a bit better. First, with the RMC giving access to true damage, Sunday's damage buff, and the action advances, crit rate, and crit damage boost they both provide, both have no trouble enabling Castorice to deal good damage. However, the RMC's crit damage buff is AoE, and their mem support, if given to Castorice, is automatically applied to Netherwing once it's summoned. However, for Sunday, You have to hold off on buffing Castorice until you can summon Netherwing, otherwise his ult or skill won't apply to both of them. Tip: if you want a fully buffed Netherwing on the first turn, only summon her during Sunday's turn, so that way you can apply his ult and skill right before she acts. And with Sunday's energy not benefiting Castorice at all, it instantly makes the RMC a much better battery, and it's all because of Mem. The RMC has a high attack frequency, perfect for rapidly proccing on attack healing from Gallagher and Luocha. This is all on top of Mem being considered as a whole nother unit for healing and taking damage, which allows for faster new bud generation. And there's another issue where speed tuning Sunday for Castorice can be a bit iffy for a few reasons. First, her speed buff isn't always active due to her HP fluctuating a lot. Second, if you have Castorice's signature or E2, the action advances can ruin any speed tuning you have. Despite all of this, Sunday is not a bad support for Castorice. He just has a few inconveniences that you'll need to work around. She also works well with Blade and Mighty. You can provide her with lots of ult charge with her gimmicks, and their attacks do proc lots of heals from Gallagher or Luocha. And Cass's damage buff and HP consumption in return enables their damage taking centric kits to perform much better. With her possible teammates out of the way, let's cook up some teams. There are two types of teams you can run with Castorice. Her best one being a standard hyper carry with 2 supports and a healer, or a duo DPS comp with either Blade or Mighty. But let's start with the hyper carry comp, where you can just use a combination of any 2 supports I mentioned earlier and a healer of your choice. But the best variation of this comp is one with Castorice, the RMC, Tribby, and either Gallagher or Luocha. Castorice hyper carry teams are pretty good for general use in just about any type of content. With the amount of buffs from Tribby and the RMC being funneled into Castorice, it allows you to deal so much damage, decimating waves of regular enemies or bosses alike. And with Gallagher or Luocha's on-attack healing, combined with the RMC and 3B's high attack frequency, it results in so much new bud generation, allowing you to get Castorice's ult back super fast or provide Netherwing with so much healing. And because of this, it allows you to effectively run the instant detonation strat with this team, where you summon Netherwing, use all her breath attacks to immediately detonate her, all while being able to summon her back by the end of Castorice's next turn due to this team's fast new bud generation. This allows you to exploit and spam Netherwing explosions for ungodly amounts of damage to delete bosses with little to no drawback. Now, because of all the damage this comp deals, it can clear any endgame content with ease, with it being able to achieve high scores in Pure Fiction and fast runs in MOC and Apocalyptic Shadow. As for duo DPS teams, you'll pair her with either Blade or Mighty with a support and healer of your choice. The best version of this comp is one with Mighty, Tribby, and either Gallagher or Luocha. Now generally, these comps will result in Castorice dealing fewer high brain rotting numbers with her attacks, which is all resulting from a lack of a second support, the buffer. However, it makes up for it in a number of ways. Mighty or Blade's HP gimmick combined with their attacks and Luocha or Gallagher's on-attack healing allows them to act as batteries who generate so much new bud charge for Castorice. They're such good batteries to the point that it's not difficult to get their ult back quickly right after detonating Netherwing, which of course makes it easier to run the instant Netherwing detonation strat I mentioned earlier, allowing for big PP damage explosions to go burr. And Cass and this team does end up enabling Mighty or Blade's damage-centric kits to perform better and deal more damage due to the HP consumption mechanic and buffs from the team. While technically only Mighty deals good damage, since Blade is only a battery for this team since he's still waiting on his buff. Stay strong, my king, you will get buffed soon. Anyway, this comp is perfect for Pure Fiction, allowing you to clear wave after wave with ease due to all the attacks from Castorice, Mighty, or Blade. And yes, these teams have no trouble clearing any endgame content. But that's about it because I'm beginning to lose my voice. But there's just one last question. Is she a must pull? She's not really a must pull if you have multiple top tier DPSs like the Herta and are satisfied in their performance in clearing content. In this case, it's much better for you to roll for someone that would benefit your account more or a character you like. And with the Fate collab and the other 3.x characters coming, it's not a bad idea to start saving. And there's also the issue of her not having lots of alternatives for her signature. So you might want to hold off rolling for her until she gets more options. Now, if you mainly want to pull for her due to her global revive, Please don't. Like I said earlier, her global revive isn't a big game changer for well-built teams. It's much better in the long run to roll for beneficial supports, fix your builds, or recompose your teams to better tackle content. So in my opinion, it's not worth it to spend upwards of 28,000 Jades for this ability alone. And let me be clear before you comment anything, this is not me defending global passives, this is only me explaining why you shouldn't pull for her just because of this one ability alone. So please don't cancel me. But she is a must pull if you're lacking a good DPS for endgame content. She's a fun and unique unit that deals lots of damage, will definitely be able to carry you in endgame content. Plus, she has a mother forking dragon. However, with this game's power creep, there's no guarantee on how she'll age. But she might get even more valuable once more LC options get released, or when more supports or healers that can better support her come out. But at the end of the day though, if you like Castorice, pull for her, and if you don't, well don't. Now, I know a lot of people have strong opinions about global passives and her setting a concerning precedent for future units. And the thought of having future units with stronger global passives like giving tons of attack and feat picks scare me. So yes, I do have some concerns and reservations about it as well, but make sure to tell me what you think about her in the comments below, and don't forget to hit me with a like and a sub.